Hello, I call to order the City of Menasha Board of Public Works. Clerk Galeazzi, could you please take attendance?
Alderman Kraut-Kramer.
Here.
Alderman Langdon.
Here.
Alderman Keehan.
Here.
Alderman Zielinski.
Here.
Alderman Spencer.
Here.
Alderman Nichols.
Here.
Alderman Taylor. Alderman Benner has been excused.
Okay, first order of business is to approve the minutes from September 8th, 2015. Do I have a motion? Alderman Keehan.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the Board of Public Works meeting of September 8th, 2015.
Motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Several items, action items to discuss. First action item is a development agreement between the City of Menasha and Vans Realty and Construction of Appleton Incorporated. Greg, could you give us some information, please?
Okay. The city actually approved entering into a development agreement with Vans Realty back in 2012. So this agreement sort of updates and supersedes what was previously agreed to. So what Vans is looking for is the city to apply its deferred assessment policy to a 39-lot subdivision that's just west of Lake Park Heights subdivision, and to also not assess for certain facilities that are serving the property but are outside the property, those being the original backbone sewer and water system from the Waverly Sanitary District and the stormwater pond that's located in Lake Park Villas. And the developer is seeking this assistance in good measure to sort of try to level the playing field with other development that the city has occurring in close proximity, namely the Ponds Menasha plat and the cottages at Lake Park, which that development is now full. And those developments the city was subsidizing out of our TIF district number 12 in order to sort of accelerate the development of the Lake Park Villas property that the city was carrying debt on. So the developer is here, Jerry Hain from Vans. Either I or he will try to answer any questions you may have about this agreement.
Okay, thank you very much. Jerry, would you like to speak? Is that that's cool?
Jerry Hain from Vans Realty and Construction, and I really don't have anything that I could explain to you other than the fact that we've probably developed, I don't know, 2 or 3 other subdivisions in the city over the years and basically used this same program. And so, you know, we're here to basically get the same deal that we got, you know, years ago. And I know that there's other developers that have used the same program that the city's approved over the years. So I'm not asking for anything new. I don't know what else to say. If you have some questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hain. Are there any questions? Alderman Taylor?
No, I don't have a question. I don't have a question.
Okay. At this point, I'd entertain a motion.
I have a motion, though.
All right. Alderman Taylor?
I'll make a motion not to approve the development agreement between the City of Menasha and Vans Realty Construction of Appleton Incorporated.
Point of order. I just want to help.
Well, yeah.
I just want to help the chairman here.
Throw me off here.
Is that Clerk Galeazzi? Could you help with the parliamentary?
Normally, you don't make a negative motion. Either there's no action or you vote it down.
Vote down. Okay.
But normally, there's not a negative motion. I'm sure Attorney Captain, if she were here, would agree on that.
So, okay, seeing that we normally don't have a
I would
negative
like some
motion.
wording on it.
Okay. Director Stino, could you
So
help me
usually
out here?
it's just a vote in the affirmative, so you would make a motion to deny as opposed to not approve.
Alderman Taylor?
I will make a motion to deny development agreement between the City of Menasha Vans Realty Construction of Appleton, Inc.
Okay, so we have a motion to forward to council to deny the development agreement between the City of Menasha and Vans Realty and Construction of Appleton Incorporated. And then we would need a second. Second for discussion from Alderman Zelinski. Seeing that we have a motion and a second, we can take this to a roll call vote, or no? It's discuss, oh, do we have some discussion?
Yeah,
Alderman
let's have
Zelinski.
some discussion.
Missed one meeting, a little rusty here. Go ahead, Alderman, thank you.
Thank you. Greg, you mentioned something about stormwater and something else not being a deferred assessment. Can you
Yeah.
elaborate on that? What would the
Sure.
cost be?
There are, when the Far East Side was developed, the city of Menasha, city of Appleton, Waverly Sanitary District, and town of Harrison entered into this agreement to finance the installation of the sewer and water systems up along County Trunk LP and so forth. And in order to pay for those systems, there were to be charges placed against the properties. And in the past, those charges were collected at the time those parcels come under development. So that backbone sewer and water was one piece, and then the other piece had to do with the stormwater pond at the west side of Lake Park Villas was designed to take in some drainage area to the north of that, which includes the vast majority of this property. So, and the developer is asking that those charges not be assessed to him because of the same reason with regard to the other developers. Lexington was, or Ponce and Menasha did not pay those assessments, nor did Cypress.
I didn't agree with that. I don't think initially either. I didn't agree with creating a TIF to build houses. And I
Well-
know Mr. Hain wanted to be in on this grandiose thing to sell houses on the east side with this TIF, but he wasn't included at that point.
Well, I think
Is this the guarantee that you gave to him without us being authorized? Because now he's back and he wants the same
I
kind
didn't,
of deal.
where did that come from? I didn't offer any
I've heard
guarantee.
rumors of this coming, but
We had an agreement in 2012 that went through the Board of Public Works and the Common Council that actually authorized the contribution of this deferred assessment policy to Vans Realty and Construction. So that was proposed and approved 3 years ago. And so, you know, he wasn't quite ready to proceed at that time, primarily because Lexington was out there and they had 125 lots that were coming under development at a subsidized rate, which he didn't feel he could adequately compete with. So now,
you could.
well, but that's a different matter. We're seeing the success of that TIF district and our homes being sold and the economic benefit. That's what, we're not here to discuss
So how
that.
did we let Cypress in for the small amount that he built in? Because he was just asking for a small portion at that point.
How did we let Cypress in?
Well, it's not really, I don't really need the answers to that, but what's the cost of this deferred stormwater and stuff I asked? Would this stormwater be normally assessed at
Yes.
some point?
Yeah, and I have those numbers. It was, that was included in a prior memo, I think. So the stormwater would have been 26,460. And the backbone sewer and water would be 1,800 an acre, 1,900 an acre times, what do we have left there, Jerry, about, how much acreage do we have left?
There's about 34 acres.
No, well, we took the park out.
Okay.
So I thought we ended up with 21. So it'd be about, yeah, $40,000.
When do the incentives end to build houses in Menasha?
Okay.
GM does this all the time, rebates to sell cars, but they're not giving them now. Is the economy still that soft for building houses that we still got to give incentives to build houses in the city of Menasha?
I asked Jennifer Sundstrom from the Fox Valley Realtors Association about communities that offered incentives or borrowed funds, and she was only able to pull together the information from Brown County. I believe 5 communities in Brown County are financing in some fashion or other residential development. The village of Little Chute just adopted a program. And I think a lot of what's going on is kind of fallout from the financial crisis. The banks were calling in loans from developers, and it's also my understanding that it's very difficult to go out on the real estate into the financial markets and get money for residential development. And this, other than the request to sort of set aside those area assessments and the stormwater charges, the city is being asked to act as the bank for this project, which relieves the developer from the expense of borrowing, in this case, over $1 million to put in the infrastructure. We do, however, get all of that money back when the lots are sold, save for our interest costs that may accrue over the first 5 years. And the reason the city originally got into this program was because we were competing with the town of Harrison and Waverly Sanitary District. Development out there, you weren't required to put in curb and gutter. You weren't required to have a lot of the street lighting, a lot of the improvements that the city does. So developers were going out there. They could develop more cheaply than in the city, and hence we were being outcompeted. So the city adopted this policy as a means of promoting development and attracting that development to the city. And when Vans and another development partner bought this property, it was their understanding that they would buy it, annex it to the city, and then the deferred assessment policy would be made available to them. As you know, a lot of things happened in 2008, so that kind of forestalled their initiatives to develop. So, I mean, I think this program has worked. We've seen a lot of nice development occur out of it. Virtually all of our east side was developed under this deferred assessment policy. So it's not that we're creating something new, we're just continuing the practice of the past.
This is a relatively small development, isn't it, compared to the other ones?
Well,
We're not talking a whole farm here, and
no, but it's,
that's what it was designed for. We came up with this because we bought all this
No.
land on the east side of the, did we do this for small subdivisions like
We've
this?
done it for very small subdivisions, smaller than this.
I don't think the town of Harrison or village of Harrison's doing it.
Not
And
to my
that's our
knowledge.
direct competition across the street, or is building expensive, costs a lot more to build in the city of Menasha than the town of Harrison? I don't think cost any more to build a house there than it does over here.
Not to build the house, but to install the infrastructure, because they have different infrastructure requirements.
No, they're target to stormwater, just like we are now, and everything that goes along with stormwater. Are you in agreement with they're removing the stormwater charges?
Well, I think that's a matter for the council to
Or is that
decide if
negotiating?
it's an, you know, as presented by the developer, it's a question of equity and, you know, with regard to what was given other developers, you know, through the TIF incentive.
Well, the problem is that shortly after this, we're gonna be discussing stormwater charges. I have a problem with that. And you came up with some amounts that we're taking off the bill, and it comes to the total, what was 40,000, or was that just one portion of it?
No, that 40,000 is for the existing stormwater pond.
That we are still paying for?
No, that was put back in 1900.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, it was 19,000.
Will these stormwater ponds have to be increased in size as this whole development and everything around it gets developed? They're adequate, we're good for what we paid, somebody paid for it, and this is the way we recoup the money. At the minimum, I would like that part brought back in. I'd make the motion that the stormwater be brought back into this agreement, that charge. Because other people had to pay for it. And I think he should too.
Is this the motion is
No,
to
we have the
deny?
motion. Okay, we're still discussing that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other discussions? Alderman Langdon?
Thank you, Chairperson Carl Kramer. Okay, Greg. The crash was in 2008. When was the deferred put in to help these?
I believe it was 1993.
1993? Was there a crash back then at that time?
I don't believe it was a crash. It was a scenario where the development was occurring in those other jurisdictions and not in the city of Menasha, and that was seen as a way of incentivizing developers to come here and build.
Okay, so I remember you saying at a meeting that we put this development, this deferred assessment in to help, because of the crash in 2008, to help the developers get through what was going on at that time, which was bad. Not correct? That's not what this is, that's not what this was for?
This policy was not adopted in response to 2008. It was in existence then.
Yeah. So then when we gave it to Lexington and Cypress, we didn't give it to them?
They didn't,
Because when did they come in? What year? Remember?
Yes, 2011, but they did not get the deferred assessment. Lexington financed the infrastructure, but they, according to the development agreement, they were subsidized to the tune of, I think, about $18,000 a lot based on the developer incentive payments. And it worked a little differently with Cypress, but they received incentives as well.
Because wasn't the 90s, boy, wasn't that booming back then? From what I've heard from people in Menasha, because I didn't know. I mean, I'm formerly from Neenah, but I live here now for 22 years, and I hear Menasha people always talking about how the 90s were beautiful, and then the steam plant came along, and then we didn't have any money. But in the 90s, boy, we could do anything we want, and I've heard that from other aldermen. So I'm wondering why we put that in there.
Well,
But I just have just want to show, I won't read the whole thing, but, you know, here it says Wisconsin sees strong showing in residential housing market. You know, if that's the case, why does the city have to be a bank to help them out? That's just my question. You don't,
Again, it's just to enhance our competitive position.
you know, I'm just asking that and showing what I had to say, so. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Alderman Langdon. Any more discussion? Alderman Nichols.
Thank you. Director Kyle, I'd like to back up for a few seconds here. The developer is proposing to develop 39 lots, and the city's, according to item number 2 on the development agreement in front of us, the city will pay Vans the actual cost of the infrastructure. So we're going to pay for them to install some infrastructure. Could you review what that infrastructure is?
It's the street graveling and grading, the sanitary sewer, the water, the storm sewer, and that's about it.
So Vans Realty is going to install all of that. We're going to act as their bank, essentially giving them the money to do that. Will we have the opportunity to earn that money back?
The cost for that will be placed as a special assessment against the property. And then when a lot is sold, those assessments have to be paid before the lot can transfer.
So the special assessments will be paid at the time of the sale of the lot, and that money can then be used to pay the city's loan.
Correct.
The money that the city has loaned the developer.
Correct.
Okay. And according to this, Vans Realty has guaranteed the sale of 5 lots every year to help us pay the loan, our loan back, to help us make our loan payments.
That's correct.
Okay. So we're fronting some money, but through the sale of the lots, our money would be paid back to us. And so we'd be recouping that cost. So essentially, there's really not a cost to us in the end.
Well, there is a cost to us in the end because we are paying interest on that money that's been loaned.
Yes, some interest. And as for the deferment of the assessments for the backbone sewer and water and stormwater pond, from the numbers you gave, the roughly 26,000, I think, was for the stormwater pond.
Mm-hmm.
Stormwater fees, and then the sewer and water was about 40,000.
The sewer and water was 27,864, and the stormwater was 15,740, I think is what we had.
Okay, so what I'm looking for is the total amount that we'd be foregoing there.
$43,604. $43,604.
$43,604,000.
$43,604.
Great, $604, thank you. And that is the cost of infrastructure that's already there. It's not stormwater fees that would be assessed to the properties that go into the stormwater utility, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, just want to be clear about that. So in the end, we'd be foregoing $43,604 plus a little interest on the loan, and we'd be gaining roughly how much in your estimate in property tax revenue?
Well, there'd be about, I'm thinking, I don't know, $7 million of development, once it's built out. And for city purposes, if we're at $10 a thousand, that would be roughly 70,000 a year.
And these costs that are proposed not to be assessed would have already incurred in TIF 12? Are they part of the TIF 12 development? That backbone sewer, water, and stormwater pond?
I'd say no.
Okay.
The stormwater pond would be partially financed out of TIF 12, I believe, correct, Mark?
Could be, yes.
So this project is separate from TIF 12?
It's not in a TIF district.
Okay, it's not in a TIF district at all. And are these incentives different from things that we've offered developers in the past?
The not charging the backbone and the offsite stormwater would be a departure from our past practice.
Okay, so not charging for the backbone sewer and water would be a departure from the past, but by your estimations, we'd be foregoing roughly $43,000 to gain $7 million in value annually.
And once it's developed, yes.
Once it's developed. I would support this agreement. I think it's a good thing for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Nichols. Alderman Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Go back in time here a little bit in history and start out where Director Kyle answered Alderman Langdon's question. You know, if we go back to the to the 80s, we had double-digit inflation. I remember when the interest rates got right below 10, the whole block I lived on, people were renting, everybody cleared out. And we thought, boy, 10% interest, that was a bargain at that time. So that carried through the 80s and into the early 90s, Alderman Langdon. And then the cities came up with some creative ways to help some of our first development on the east side. I know Secura was one of those. And along with that, the city developed a incentive program as time moved on. These incentives grew throughout the years. One thing about a council, you can't put anything on us that a previous council did. In April, everything that former councils did and sign and die, that's it. That's history. New councils, they have different economic times, different economic sensitivity, as with our steam plant and things. At any different time, I don't think you can put something that was done in the past on somebody else. We could talk about it and make a good business decision why we did that back then or why we need to do it now. Anytime you have a downturn in economies deserve opportunities for creative financing, creative development ideas. Alderman Langdon mentioned that he has an article there with the state of Wisconsin saying how we're in a really good time with housing. Different developers took different risks. Certainly if anybody in this room in March of 2009 would threw all your money into the stock market, right now we'd probably all be millionaires at this time. But did you want to take that risk at that time? And you know, it kind of separates the different. Certain developers want to get in at that time. Certain developers don't want to get in at that time. I look at our $10 million development we have on Midway Road. That developer, $10 million, has asked for nothing from us, and that's a great development for the community. I appreciate Vans doing business with us in the past, and I think this is a little excessive for the economic times that we have right now. I don't think we have to leverage the taxpayers this far out on this document. I think there's room for some negotiation and possibly some concessions, but this, I think at this time and with this economic chapter we're at in time here, that we have too much on the taxpayers' back here, and we need to lighten that load somewhat. So I'd be interested in doing that as we move forward to put this on the council agenda and maybe come up with some different negotiations, different ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Taylor. Any further discussion? Alderman Zelinski.
Thank you. Greg, I thought there was discussion that we would get the interest back, so we're going to forego the interest for the development. Is that the way I heard it?
That's the way the deferred assessment policy is structured. What was discussed was this requirement for the purchase of 5 lots a year, which would then cover the city's interest costs on that $1 million.
Oh, that would, he owns the lots, he's going to pay for the infrastructure, but the interest is going to be included in it?
That's how it works, yeah.
That's how it works, that's how we do it?
Yeah, for the first 5 years, and then after 5 years, interest starts accumulating at our cost of borrowing, and then it has to be paid at 10 plus a percent, right?
He will be paying up and above that at that point?
After 5 years, correct.
Okay. I really feel for him that he wasn't included in the granddaddy of all home building project when we did the TIF, because I think that kind of stunk. But I would like to bring this to the council, but it would be going to the council either way. I'd like to put this to an end at some point. This instead of now we're all of a sudden we're increasing this. What does the next guy ask for? We're going beyond what you initially agreed in the 90s. Now we're going beyond that, so this is going to be going to the council whether it's denied or approved, so you can hash that out at that point.
Thank you, Alderman Zelinski. Any more discussion? Alderman Taylor.
Director Kyle, do we know is there any lots sold out there at this time?
Oh, where?
At this development?
No, the improvements aren't in yet, so it's not available. The lots aren't available.
So there's not any interest at this time that somebody has approached the developer and said,
Well, are there prospective purchasers? I don't know. I assume that they believe that there are people that are waiting to buy these lots.
thank you.
Any further discussion from council members? Alderman Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would it be all right if I ask Clerk Galiazi a question?
Yes, that
Thank
would be
you.
fine.
I'm wondering what happens with my vote. The motion is to, could you reread the motion?
Certainly. Moved by Alderman Taylor, seconded by Alderman Zelinski to recommend to the Common Council to deny the development agreement between the City of Menasha and Vans Realty and Construction of Appleton, Inc.
So if we vote yes, what would happen?
Your yes vote would be to deny the development agreement. A no vote would be not to deny the development agreement.
Which
Okay.
would be the original motion.
And then it would go back to the original motion? No?
Well, there was, you could, another motion, because that's the only motion on the table at this
Okay.
time, to recommend to the Common Council. So this is what you're recommending to the Common Council.
So a yes vote recommends a denial, and a no vote simply means we're not recommending to
The
deny.
deny,
Okay, I
yes.
just wanted to be clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Nichols. Any further discussion? Alderman
Yes,
Zelinski.
there is. If I would remove my second, could I make a motion directly after that?
Go ahead, Clerk Galiazzi.
Since you're not the city attorney,
No,
okay,
but-
you're acting as the...
Well, if
I'm
you
sorry.
remove your second, and nobody else makes a second, then there's no motion. Because you need a motion and a second in order to vote on it. So if you would remove your motion, there is no motion.
I'm removing my second.
Pause for a point of order.
Go ahead, Alderman Taylor.
I'll put you on if I can have it back. There's no guarantees, are there?
I'll serve it back to you. Thank you for yielding, Alderman Zelinski. The motion has become part of the body, and we can vote this up or down at this point, and the recommendation is just to the council, and the council will have its complete discussion and formal vote on this. So this doesn't mean that the council has to accept this at that time. We will have plenty of discussion in 2 weeks on October 5th on this too. So I believe that the second is part of the body and can't be removed because it has to be voted on. Is that correct?
If the motion, if he removes his second, then there is no motion. But what you're saying is that he cannot remove his second?
Yes.
No,
Because there's been discussion, we've acted upon that, and now it's part of the body to either, to dispose of it or move it forward.
But if he, no, it's not been the tradition. If he's removing his motion, his second, and there has already been discussion on this because there was a first and a second.
But that makes it part of the body that if there wasn't a second, then it just.
Then there wasn't,
but
then
we
there
have
would
a
be no
second, so it
discussion.
becomes part of the body accepts that second, and then we have our discussion, and we have to act on that at this time. I don't think you can remove that.
So if he chooses to vote against it,
But it's not his anymore, it's the body's.
The body's
second
been-
is
it's
the
been
body's, So the
discussion.
body would have to dispose of that.
Okay. Okay, as the chair, let's go with the initial motion that Alderman Taylor has put together, which was seconded by Alderman Zelinski, to recommend to council to deny the development agreement between City of Menasha and Vans Realty and Construction of Appleton Incorporated.
Let's go. Call the vote.
All right. Any further discussion?
No.
All right. Please take a vote.
motion fails on roll call, 2-5.
And here, does that have to have a two-thirds vote? I thought it had to have a two-thirds vote.
Alderman Zelinski.
Thank you. I will make a motion to pass this on to council, that the developer pays interest plus the 1% after 2 years and pays for the backbone infrastructure.
Second.
That the developer would pay the interest after 2 years plus 1%. Peggy said that he was gonna agree for after 5 years, and he pays the backbone infrastructure, which was the stormwater and
Sewer and water.
sewer and water. Does because I just don't want these incentives to keep on growing before we're just giving property away, and basically that's what we did at the other end.
Okay, so we have a motion by Alderman Zelinski. We will need a second.
Alderman Langdon.
Seconded by Alderman Langdon.
Now discussion.
Is there any discussion? Alderman Taylor.
I'm still going to vote against this. I respect the creative wording that Alderman Zelinski has, and I'm sure it's going to pass, and the council will take a look at it. But I would like Director Sino to put this into a writing here, so I could see how this all spells out and what you want. So between now and the next meeting, Alderman Zelinski, I hope we put that in writing and see how that looks. Thank you.
Could we just make sure we understand is the motion for a 2-year deferral instead of a 5-year deferral? And then everything else the same, no incentive on the backbone or the storm? Which is total part of our special assessment policy.
Yep.
Okay. Alderman Nichols.
Thank you. Clerk Galiazzi, could you reread the motion for me, please?
Moved by Alderman Zelinski, seconded by Alderman Langdon, to recommend to Common Council the development agreement between the City of Menasha and Vans Realty and Construction, where the developer pays interest after 2 years and 1% with no incentives on the backbone infrastructure.
Why don't you let Peggy read the motion? She
Yeah.
The city's code says that there's a deferred assessment policy, and that deferred assessment policy allows no payments for 5 years at interest-free. And then after that, basically, interest would go on at the normal rate established. So really, if you just said you wanted the deferral period to be 2 years instead of 5 years, you don't even have to say about +1 interest or anything. That's just normal part of code. So it's just a 2-year deferral instead of a 5-year deferral with no special incentives.
So it'd be a 2-year deferral and no incentives on the backbone of the infrastructure.
And the backbone includes the stormwater and the sewer and water?
Debbie's on.
Alderman Nichols.
Thank you. Director Stino, you just mentioned that our deferment policy is set in code. Are we able to change that on a whim, or would it need something more than a simple motion?
I think we're going to need to amend the language in the development agreement that would apply to this specific situation, and then incorporate the terms of the deferred assessment policy, save for these amendments in the development agreement, rather than this amending the ordinance per se.
Okay. And then the 5-year deferment, refresh my memory please, is something we've offered developers in the past.
That's correct.
Okay. So it's my belief that we have set a precedent as a city, and this developer, as far as the assessment, the deferred assessment goes, isn't asking any more of us than we've already offered developers in the past. And we are competing with our neighbors, and we need to remain competitive. And again, for the backbone costs, that amounts to $43,600. And I think it's a good bet in my mind to forego that for $7 million in new property value in the city. So I would not support that change to the agreement.
Thank you, Alderman Nichols. Alderman Zelinski.
I disagree with her on a certain aspect of this. We are increasing it by paying for the $43,000. We are increasing it, and then the next developer comes in, I want 83. Where do we stop? We should be winding this back. I don't want to discuss between one developer over another, because this is not the place for it. He does a good development. He didn't get this over in the town of Menasha. I don't think he got it over in the village of Harrison, and we're less than a mile apart. So just starting to wind these things back a little bit was only prudent on our part.
Thank you, Alderman Zelinski. Any further discussion? Alderman Taylor.
Thank you. It's all about risk, and some people like to take risk at different economic times, and other people don't. And those economic times, you have incentives, like Alderman Zelinski said. GM, look at the incentives they offer when the economy's not there, and they offer all sorts of initiatives to help sell cars. And same with our lots here. Different economic times present different agreements, different opportunities, and certainly we need to take the load off the taxpayers' back at this time with the upturn in the economy, and as the state of Wisconsin stated in Alderman Langdon's article, and we need to adjust to that. Each business in the business world, that's how they do it. They adjust to the times, and we have to do that too.
Thank you, Alderman Taylor. Any further discussion?
Can I talk about?
Mayor Merkus?
We should sit back and think about some numbers here. So we have 31 houses. Each one of those houses is to pay about $2,000 a year in taxes, $60,000 a year. That land is sat vacant. I don't know what kind of taxes you're paying on the whole property, probably $2,000 or $3,000, I bet, is ag land. So we've lost $60,000 per year for 3 years because it's not developed, at least. It's $180,000. If Mr. Hain even sits back for a year or two, we're losing $60,000 a year, and we're risking $40,000. We're providing a $40,000 incentive. So if he even holds back 1 year because we don't move forward on this, we're going to lose more than we're going to gain. This is a good bet for us to be pulling in an extra $60,000 a year in tax revenue by acting as his bank and for giving him these stormwater and sanitary fees that are already paid for. We've already paid for those many years back. The loans are paid off. So we have a lot more to risk by not providing an incentive than by providing this incentive and getting this built out quickly and with quality housing. So I would recommend that we approve the incentive as proposed. His costs to develop in Menasha are higher than other areas, and they're higher than some of the neighboring properties in the city of Menasha as well. So he's already at a disadvantage, and to get these things sold quicker with a small incentive, I think will suit us well over the next 3 to 5 years.
Thank you, Mayor Merkus. Alderman Zelinski.
Thank you. I was done talking on this thing until he chimed in. I thought we needed unanimous consent to hear from the mayor on this. Do we need unanimous? Okay. Well, anyway, okay, we're going to sell, I don't know, I'll just throw a number out there, 50 houses in Menasha next year. Well, they're going to be built, they're going to be sold by Lexington, or are they going to be sold by Vans? I don't know. You throw out this number like it's a done deal. I don't believe it is. We're going to only sell a limited amount of houses in Menasha. We gave the grandiose deal for Lexington and Cypress, and he's still got to compete. It's tough. And I don't know why you think they're all going to sell. Maybe Lexington's going to sell it. I hope he does. I hope he sells out too, but you to throw that out there as a prediction is just scary to me. I never got a 5-year deferred assessment of my house when I bought it. The bank, well, you don't have to pay interest for 5 years. Maybe I should have asked. Maybe I should ask the city for deferred taxes for 5 years if I build a house in the city of Menasha. Where do you get these deals? This is just scary to me.
Thank you, Alderman Zelinski. Alderman Taylor.
And comment on the mayor made about the city losing out, that goes both ways. The developer loses out too. And if they want to throw this under the bus for the $40,000 or the changes to it, that's up to them too. So it's a two-way street.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Clerk Galeazzi, do you have the original motion? By Zelinski, seconded by Langdon, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Could you repeat that for me, please?
So it was. Alderman Steno may want to pipe in on this too. Excuse me. Director.
I'm too afraid.
Director Steno, excuse me. Sorry about that. Moved by Alderman Zelinski, seconded by Alderman Langdon to recommend to the Common Council the development agreement between the City of Menasha, Vans Realty and Construction. The developer pays interest after 2 years instead of 5 years, and there's no incentive on the backbone infrastructure, which includes stormwater and sewer and water. All right.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, could we take a vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 4-3.
Okay, I believe we're finally on to action item number 2. It is a recommendation to modify lane assignments on Washington Street north of Nicolay Boulevard. Director Atke, do you have some information for us?
Yes, I do. Thank you. A few years ago, one of the officers, police officers, had brought forward an issue that he was concerned with that involved the movement of traffic, southbound traffic on Washington Street as it's approaching Nicolay Boulevard. Essentially, motorists that are in that on Washington Street in that direction are confused when they approach the intersection, and many of them don't get the information that the left lane or center lane is for left turns only until it's too late because of the location of our overhead guidance sign. And they had been experiencing crashes or near crashes quite often. And so the thought was, we had this I believe it came to the Board of Public Works, or maybe it was just staff-wise, we decided that we needed to get the City of Neenah involved because the City of Neenah operates that intersection, the signals at the intersection, and these vehicles are traveling into the City of Neenah at that point. So we finally did get a response from Neenah. In the meantime, the City of Neenah also improved the intersection. They added detection loops at the intersection, and they agree that this would not cause, they don't believe it would cause issues, and it'd work out fine. It would function fine if we were to change that center lane from a left turn only to a left or through movement. So that is the recommendation that is before the board. Normally that would require an ordinance change. For some reason, this was a lane configuration that was reality without an language in the ordinance. So if you were to approve this, there would just be no need for an ordinance change because it doesn't really exist now, officially anyhow, by word of the code. So again, we're recommending approval to modify those lane assignments as such.
Thank you, Director Atke. Is there any discussion? Alderman Taylor?
I'll make a motion to recommend, or the recommendation to, or recommend approve the modified lane assignments on Washington Street north of Nicolay Boulevard.
We have a first and a second. Could we take a roll call vote, please? Oh, discussion, sorry, Alderman Taylor.
That's fine. I drive this intersection on a regular basis, and Director Radke and the police department is right. As you make that curve, someone's always trying to move to the right, and I think it was a good thing before Nina took off their parking on Commercial Street, but now there's no parking on Commercial Street, so there's no reason that those lanes can't move forward. And it seems like it's probably somebody from out of town that always gets stuck out there, and then they have to go, and then there's almost a near accident as you move through that intersection. So there's some accidents before and after the intersection, and I think this is great. It's a great recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Taylor. Alderman Zelinski.
Thank you. So if I get this right, this is Washington, we're going south. You're just gonna get rid of that arrow where you can take a left-hand turn?
Right, we'll probably get rid of the overhead sign. It's in marginal condition at best, the sign support and the signs themselves. So we can accomplish this just with standard signs on the side of the road and with pavement marking. So yes,
So
we
what
would
is-
get rid of the left turn only
If you're going on
designation.
Washington south,
Yes, on the lane closest to the center line.
yeah, I get cut off out of there a lot, so going straight. What is this, what did the signal changes in Nina you mentioned change for the people that do want to go left? Anything?
Nothing changed in the signals. They added some detection back further, so it, they put detection back further. So the first, if there's only one car there, you won't get the green arrow come up and be activated.
Okay.
So, in other words, it helps that that cars aren't waiting
Yes.
for a car that might be in that lane to turn left.
Is there parking in front of that? There's a storage building there. Is there parking in front of there where the lanes, I know sometimes the lanes narrow down on
You're talking,
Commercial Street. Is there adequate for two
No.
lanes all the way on Commercial Street?
no, I don't think there's any parking
No, when they
there.
reconfigured Commercial Street a number of years ago, as Alderman Taylor said, they removed all the on-street parking. And that was the original intent of this, that you'd be funneling the left-hand lane, so it would be going either down Nicolay Boulevard or First Street. And that right-hand lane then would be the one that would continue south. So since that reconfiguration now, it's difficult, and you could sit out there for 15 minutes and find someone going straight in that left lane
So
anyway.
there's two decent lanes on Commercial Street going south.
Mhm.
Yep.
Sometimes it's like a drag race because you gotta get over or something, so,
And that's one of the things that we avoid, correct?
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Zelinski. Any further discussion?
One quick
Alderman
question.
Taylor.
Director Radke, I see in the memo here, there's some sort of, and just brief on this, I enjoy technology, and there's some microwave technology that's being used now for the lights.
It's actually been in existence for quite some time, the microwave detection technology, but yes, and the City of Neenah is utilizing that technology at this particular intersection.
Okay, do we have any of that technology, that microwave technology, do we use that at all?
We did. We used it at 9th and Racine and 9th and Appleton Road years ago, but those were the first generation microwave
Sure.
detection, and we found that it was not reliable.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
now I understand they're much better.
Okay. We'll see.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, could we take a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 7-0.
Oh, boy. Number 3, moving along here. Methodology of billing stormwater, and I believe I'll throw this at Director Steno for some assistance,
I think you have to remove it from the tape.
information. Does 3 go with 4? Could we put them together?
Okay, so the first item, the methodology, that was in response to some of the questions that Alderman Zelinski was asking. So what we did is we put together, the background of the memo shows what the current methodology is in the city of Menasha. It explains what would happen if the current methodology of charging duplexes would change, both to 0.75 per unit and 0.5 per unit, as well as what would happen to the overall ERU charge if that were to happen. There is an attachment on page 3 that shows the method of charging various property types in different municipalities. The City of Appleton's is blank. That should read, if you want to just mark it down, they do have 2,368 square feet per ERU. A single-family home is 1 ERU. Duplexes are charged depending on if they're on a public street or a private street. If they're on a public street, it's 0.5 per unit, i.e. 1 for the entire duplex, or 1 ERU per unit, i.e. 2 for each duplex on a private road. The triplexes are done by square footage as well as all other properties, non-residentials. So I guess I think that was the question at hand, was what if duplexes would not be charged 1 entire ERU?
Okay, we don't have to vote or anything on that. Alderman Zelinski, go ahead, discussion.
Where do I start? First discussion we had with this was, I don't know, 2, 3, maybe a month ago. We were talking about staff time to bring this into a more, I was talking about having it more fair for sizes of houses. And what would that staff time be, and how could we work that into future to make this fair for the person that has a 400 square home versus someone that has a 5,000 square foot home? Because you see in these charts that Appleton is charged 1, but then other things are charged by size. Unit charges by size, they have a range. We're always talking about competing with adjoining neighbors, maybe we should do it by size. But I heard that staff time would be very time consuming, and to get to that number is very tough. And Mark, how much staff time would there be involved in doing something like this?
Well, I think there's staff time at various different areas in the city. First of all, we'd have to gather the data to be able to come up with the information that is necessary to implement a tiered system, and that would be impervious surface. It's my understanding that the assessor's data does not include impervious surface. It includes square footage of the homes, and it may include some of the impervious surface, such as maybe driveways. No, they don't. Okay. So, I mean, that information would have to be gathered, and you're talking 5,000 to 6,000 residential properties for which that would have to be gathered, and that alone would take a long time and a lot of staff time.
And that would really just be the onset. That would be the first one. In addition to valuing them all, you would also have to maintain them. And because we don't require permits, I don't believe we require permits for like a patio, et cetera.
Driveways we do.
Oh, sorry.
We require permits for driveways, but not for other hard surface patios.
Decks
that
we
kind
do.
of- We require permits for most decks, yes.
But any concrete, someone could concrete their entire backyard, be contributing largely to the stormwater issue and never have to pay another dime.
What is that, 1%?
People
1/10 of
people have
1%?
concrete. When we did it, I set up a stormwater utility back in West Dallas in the mid-'90s. We were the first lucky or unlucky community other
I'll go
than
with
Madison
unlucky.
and Milwaukee. And you'd be surprised at how many people have concrete patios. More people
Yeah.
had concrete patios than had decks.
Well, not their whole backyards.
It could vary. The question is how do you maintain it?
Other than somebody that bought a commercial property, maybe, well, Alderman raised his hand that he paved his whole backyard, but I contest that I don't think it's all paved. But look at, I handed out a bill, a typical bill from the city of Neenah, and they do it in a pretty wide range. 0 to 1,700, that's not on this one, but they have it on another one. 1,700 to 4,600, and then more than 4,600. That's a wide range. if somebody wants to contest somebody's patio, I think that's gonna be far and in between. This wouldn't be hard to arrive at, and I just wonder what the dollar cost would be to come up with that. Because the assessor already has the, assessor already has the
I can tell
house
you, yeah, I was
first
going to say,
level.
the assessor would not be the person who's going to do this. You would need to hire a consultant that would, somebody that does stormwater on a regular basis to determine what's impervious and
Okay.
what's not. I don't know what it costs to set up the utility as far as that goes, but basically you'd be reestablishing the entire stormwater utility by going that route.
Okay, so I don't want to debate this all night. I'll make the motion for the methodology and for a start on making it fair. Go to the duplexes and charge them .75 per unit. That's a start. We're still higher than a lot of the adjoining communities, and it's not a big impact. And I would hope that staff at some point can work on this to make it fair. 'Cause if you, I'm not supposed to mention it, but you look at all these other bills, we are #1. And we should start making things fair between the communities that we adjoin. Now, I found out Appleton wasn't in there, but they're making it fair, and Mark even brought up in between meetings, they're maybe even bringing it up and making it breaking it down a little bit closer on square footage.
Appleton?
Yeah, you said something,
You just said that they weren't? We didn't,
I'm not sure what Mark said, but on their code, it says that they're counting one ERU for 2,368 feet. Ours is 2,980. So we allow for a larger space. They have .5 per unit or 1 per duplex on a public road and 2 on a private road. That's how
Okay.
they chose to split it up, but I don't know about any
duplexes do we have
changes.
on private roads?
In the city of Menasha, I don't know. I'm assuming they must have a fair amount in
I
the
don't
city
know
of
that
Appleton
many.
if they're,
They might have some
going
private
through with that.
subdivisions, but I don't know of any. Greg, do you know of any private roads that there's duplexes on?
the average of all of the communities that we
now I do,
surveyed.
Yeah, Winnebago Court.
Winnebago Court.
Yeah, that's about the only one that I know of, and there's, what, 6 of them? I don't think that's gonna make or break the bank here. But now that you just mentioned Appleton, they charge by 2,800 square feet?
23.
And the lower the number goes, the more people pay for bigger properties that are measured by square foot.
Correct,
But they're not measuring the homes,
correct.
but the commercial properties are getting hit harder than the city of Menasha.
Correct.
Does everybody understand that? The lower you make that number, the higher they're gonna pay amount that ERUs. So I don't think I'm asking for too much here to make this fair, but I think the staff should work on this in the next 3-4 years to come up with some kind of plan that we could measure the homes or the driveways when times are better to make this fair, possibly like the range like Nina has. So that's my motion.
Thank you, Alderman
Was-
Zelinski.
So the motion was that we'll stick with the current methodology, but break down duplexes by .75, which is still higher than the other communities. Yes.
Do you have to make an amendment or no? No? All right. Just council. We need a second. Okay. Do we have a second to approve to council methodology of billing stormwater to with the current methodology, changing duplexes to .75 per unit?
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Alderman Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sure that with the stormwater, that's been advancing, I'm sure there's some grants out there, and probably our best department with grants is the health departments. I think maybe the health department could take this on because they're so good at grants. Tongue in cheek here, okay? But they are good at grants, okay? And I'm wondering if there is a grant program for this. And there's a lot of people unemployed. There's a lot of community development people that we could hire on a part-time basis here. And put them out into our community. We can figure out how many properties a day that we figure that someone could do. It's pretty simple math, and get them out there and get this done. You know, we have people that live within their means. They live in with their square footage of their home for a certain reason. I know a lot of people are out there living on 1980s retirement funds and pension funds. And I think it is unfair to the taxpayers. And I think as other communities have a more fair way of figuring out this, I think we should move towards that. Yeah, it'll take time. We don't have the staff to do it. That's why we're going to have the budget process is coming up. So I think we could figure out how many properties a day could be done and how many properties we have to do, and pretty much come up with a dollar number that would work for that. So I appreciate that we're moving this on this time of night to the council, and we'll talk more there. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Alderman Zelinski.
Yes, thank you. I agree with Alderman Taylor on that, and when you get to the really big houses that are over the 4,600 square feet, they don't even have to be measured. So you're eliminating a big swath of them right there. So once they measure their house, get their size of their house and their driveway, 4,600 is going to be eliminated. Maybe we could even adjust that number so that would eliminate a lot of houses that they wouldn't even have to measure.
Okay, any further discussion? Alderman Taylor?
Thank you. I would just like to see the Director Kyle or Director Radke, if there is any grants out there or funding for this process to assess our properties.
I'm not aware of any. We've used two of the grants that I am aware of. We've used a planning grant twice to prepare our stormwater management plan, and in the process of preparing our TMDL stormwater management plan. And then we've used the construction side that also is out there in the construction of our Taco Street stormwater management pond. I'm not aware of any grants that are there to fund administrative and that type of work.
Any further discussion? Great. Okay, let's take a vote. Oh,
Not too late for me.
Oh, you?
Now you're on.
Alderman Nichols, you're on.
Thank you. If you're not aware of any grant funds that would be available to fund a reconstruction of the stormwater utility, how would we pay for it?
Well, I mean, it depends how we went about it. If we utilize staff, then it would be staff time that would be devoted to that function. If we did go outside, then that would be, outside services costs that would have to be paid for and budgeted for, I'm guessing. So and that would be a stormwater, I'm sure, eligible and appropriate stormwater utility cost. So that would just add to the 1.1 million or whatever we're using now for revenue needed. That number would then grow in that situation, unless we made other revisions to expenses elsewhere.
So we're looking at trying to come up with roughly $1.1 million in revenue in our stormwater utility. And I thought, we've been talking about this for so long, I thought I saw a few months back that even at that level, our utility would still be operating in the red. We wouldn't have sufficient funds to maintain that utility at that point.
The last page.
So we're discussing the 2015 recommendation. I realize I'm probably spilling over into item number 4 here. And with that increased recommendation, we're still short $194,500. With the increase in, we think there would be another recommendation coming forth in 2016, still leaves us at $18,550,000 short. So at a time when we're trying to operate a fluid fund here, we're talking about spending a whole lot more money reinventing the wheel. And that cost is either going to have to come from the stormwater utility or go on the property tax bill. And I have a hard time supporting that. There's an old phrase, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I feel like we're spinning our wheels here. I feel like a hamster. And I just don't think it's a good idea to try and change something that's working really well for the city right now, other than not coming up with enough funds at this point. But this has been working. It's been established for a long time. The rates haven't been raised since its inception, I believe.
They were raised once.
Okay, one time since 2009. So the cost of business keeps rising, and we need to keep up with that. And I have a hard time shifting more of that cost to homeowners in this city. So that's where I have a bit of a conflict with changing things from the way they are right now.
Thank you, Alderman Nichols. Any further discussion? Mayor Marcus?
I just want to make sure that everyone's clear what this proposal does is it lowers the stormwater fee to a duplex, and it raises the stormwater fee to a single-family house. That's what we're talking about doing here. So it's a small amount. It's what, $1.50 a year, or is that yeah, that's a year to a single-family home, but it still is raising the cost to all of our homeowners and single-family dwellings and lowering it to all the duplexes.
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman Taylor?
All we can do is be fair in the way we tax. It might not be broke, but it's not fair. And it's not fair to the people that have 800 square feet and the people that have 10,000 square feet. And all we're asking everybody to do is pay their fair share. And I don't think a government can be any more responsible than that, to have people pay their fair share. And sometimes it costs a little bit to get there. And this is something that's been thrown on our backs, and other cities have adjusted to it fairly. And I think the city of Menasha needs to adjust to this fairly too.
Thank you, Alderman Taylor. Alderman Zielinski?
Thank you, I thought I was done. Peggy, most of this cost is being derived by street reconstruction, isn't it? And storm sewer and curb and gutter, added cost?
That's a fair share. That's the analysis that I gave you in either June or July when you first asked where all those charges are being charged to. That was on there. Street reconstruction is a large portion, and that's also shown on that analysis on that page 4. There are some things, up until this point, we've basically been funding the stormwater costs out of the stormwater fund. We can no longer do that, so along with these increases, we're looking at debt service, some borrowings that go along in order to pay those street reconstruction.
Yeah, that was my biggest qualm on this whole thing, that we shifted so many things out of the general fund onto stormwater. So it's time to start making it fair, because these costs are never going to go down. We might not have enough after 2016. We're coming back for more. And when we come back for more, that's the time to make it fair. I said 3 to 4 years, come up with some kind of strategy how to make this fair. Why should somebody in a 400 square foot home pay the same as somebody in a 10,000 square foot home? But the only 10,000 square foot home in the city is probably on the water, so they pay half as much. So they pay relatively little or nothing. So I think it's time to start making this fair. I'm probably arguing for this for the wrong reasons, but I think it's time to make it fair. And we got 3 to 4 years to make it fair, and I think we should.
Thank you, Alderman Zelinski. Any further discussion? Alderman Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I usually don't pipe up more than twice, but I'm confused about something, and I'm hoping Director Radke can help me with this. The ERUs, are they based on the square footage of homes, actual physical dwellings, or something else?
The ERU, when we created our stormwater utility, we had an engineer through aerial photography, through assessor's records, whatever. They looked at single-family homes only. This relates only to a single-family home. The ERU is in the city of Menasha is the average amount of impervious surface on a single-family residential property.
Could
And not property, one that has a home on it.
Could you define what impervious surface is?
Impervious surface would be any hard surface, including roof area, hard surface, concrete, asphalt, includes gravel, any brick surface. So those are the main categories.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, the impervious surface, we charge based on ERUs, which is...
That's an equivalent runoff unit. Some municipalities refer to it as an equivalent residential unit to, give you a better idea of what it's representing. It's representing that average, for that community, the average amount in area terms of impervious surface for a single-family residential home.
So it's not based on the square footage of your home.
No.
Or the square footage of your property.
No.
It's based on an average of the impervious surface from a group of properties.
From, yes, all of the properties in the city of Menasha.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
all the single-family residential
Yes.
properties.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Nichols. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we need to vote on the motion of the methodology of billing stormwater, current methodology with 0.75 per unit for duplexes, as stated by Alderman Zelinski.
So would that become the new methodology?
Approve it to council.
That's what I'm recommending to council.
Okay, please take a vote.
Motion carried on roll call, 6-1.
Okay, moving along quickly here. Action item number 4 is a motion to remove from the table my resolution, R2515, pertaining to equivalent runoff unit charges for stormwater utility. Director Steno, could you give us some information on this?
This is the...
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, do I have a motion to remove from the table? Alderman Nichols.
Thank you. I'll move that we remove from the table Resolution R25-15 pertaining to equivalent runoff unit charges for the stormwater utility as introduced by Mayor Merkus.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Okay. Director Steno, could you help us out? No? Oh, I'm sorry. Mayor Merkus.
At this point, the resolution is no longer germane because the numbers don't add up if we change the methodology. We'd actually be reducing the amount of money that we're bringing into the stormwater utility rather than increasing it. Okay. So I would withdraw my support of that resolution at this point as well. And I don't think we can take that up until we have that, unless we're going to change the billing and then a month and a half from now change it all again. So we would have to do that on the next
Okay.
meeting.
So we leave it as is? Okay. Director Steno.
Well, what I want to tell you is I want to tell you that the stormwater utility, we've been talking about this for 3 months, and there's no disrespect intended at all, but the stormwater utility needs a rate increase really bad. And every time we defer this, we're talking about $14,000 that the stormwater utility doesn't have. So as much as I respect everything that everybody's saying, I think very soon it's time to take up this resolution to decide if these rates are going to increase or not. I don't disagree with the mayor that we will be shorter than we would have been with the number of ERUs in place before, but we need to do something and we need to do it fast. So that's just my thought.
Thank you, Director Stino. Alderman Zelinski.
Thank you. Peggy, you had the calculations in here if we changed it from 2.2 to 0.75. How hard is it to bring that number to us?
Well, that was based on the current rates. On the increase, the rate increase, if it goes to the 1.5, which is what the motion and vote was, that means we're going to get annually $10,701 less in 2015. And then with the 2016 increase for another $1 per ERU, we're looking at that 1.5 level, $12,000. So overall, over 2 years, we're looking at approximately $23,000 less than we would have before. In my mind, that's not a reason to hold this rate increase.
No, I agree with you.
As I said before, the stormwater needs to move along.
If I wanted to move this along, we could make a motion for 1 year, and then you can bring it back shortly after this.
You're talking about 12,000 at that point. My recommendation is to consider both of the increases at this time. I get it that the ERUs are going down, but we're losing more money on a monthly basis by not implementing a rate increase and operating this utility prudently. So if you choose not to, I completely respect that, but I think now's the time to act on both of these increase recommendations.
Yeah, because we're not really curing the problem this first year anyway.
We're not curing the problem in either of these 2 years.
It all comes down to street reconstruction, and then we're going to have to determine what we're going to do with street reconstruction. I don't know where this high-efficiency sweeper comes into it. If we can just get an extra sweeper, I think would be, but you got to man the sweeper, and that's the problem going forward. There was a sweeper in here. Is that in here in the new numbers? Or is that a budgeted thing that we got discussed again?
Well, there were funds that were set aside in previous budgets. I'm not sure how that plays out into the purchase of that.
Is that included in the 2015 budget?
Trying to think if there are 15,000 or something like that in this year's budget to bring it up to that level. But overall, we're talking, over 200,000 for that street sweeper.
Yeah, somehow this stormwater thing is evolving into something that I was afraid it might do, and street reconstruction is very vital to the city. And we might have to find a different source to do the street reconstruction, because some people say we're keeping up, some people say we're not. Depending on where you live in the city and where you drive, that can be debated probably the rest of this evening and the next one and the next one after that. So, Peggy, what would be preferred motion, just to go forward with what we have, because we know it's going to be a shortfall for next year anyway?
I do recommend that we go through with the the rate recommendations in the current resolution, because the more we delay it, we're just getting further and further behind. And we can say we're going to have this discussion again next year, but let's be honest, this took us 3 months to have this discussion tonight.
Yes,
and I'm not sure we're any further ahead than we were 3 months ago. So I strongly recommend $1 per ERU per year as of October 1st, and another one on July 1st of 2016. That will get us on our way to operating in a prudent manner. We can then consider it for the 2017 budget, and then likely with the TMDL ramifications that are going to be coming, these increases will seem very small at that point.
Yes, I agree, and it pains me to even make the motion to increase anything if everybody knows me. So I'll make the motion to pass on to council the increases that are in there. Unless somebody already made the increase.
The motion and a second are already on the floor
Okay.
to remove from the table.
We
did.
removed it from the table, now we're discussing the,
We have to vote on removing it from the table, then you can actually start.
okay.
Okay, so the vote is on removing
We didn't take a vote.
the resolution R 2515.
Now we have to wait for all of them to come.
And we are in a holding pattern.
Then you can make your motion to.
We're going to vote on the motion to remove from the table resolution R 2515. Okay, let's take a vote.
Motion carried on roll call 6-1.
Let's just remove it from the table. I think I voted on
Okay.
it 3 times.
Seeing that there are no other action items. Oh, wait, I moved ahead. There is still an action item.
Now you have to act on 2115.
I will.
Now that is in front of you now.
Okay,
The resolution as presented, the R25.
all right. Since you said that, do I have to repeat it? All right, Alderman Selinsky.
No, I will make a motion to pass on to the council resolution R-25-15 pertaining to the equivalent runoff unit charges.
Motion and a second. Could we take another vote, please? Oh, any discussion, sorry.
Mayor, take this off the table, this resolution.
That's
Before he said he was, and then he took it back.
No.
Is that?
The motion right now is for to recommend to the
Recommend.
common council resolution R-2515.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
what you, what discussion.
Okay, and the mayor still has removed his support.
Yep. Okay. Take a vote.
Motion carried on roll call 6-1.
Now I see an empty space there, except for a motion for adjournment, which I would accept.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? We are adjourned.
Broadcasts of the City of Menasha Administration Committee, Board of Public Works, and Common Council meetings are produced by University Studios of the University of Wisconsin-Fox Valley. Menasha residents and interested parties can obtain information about these meetings and meeting agendas from the city website, www.cityofmenasha-wi.gov. Expression of opinions regarding City of Menasha issues or about these broadcasts can be made by contacting the mayor's office, 920-967-5117. Contacting their city alderman. Contact information appears on the website. Completing the electronic feedback form on the website. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited for playback.